Hi everyone, today I'm going to be playing Scythe, the solo mode, and I am going to be doing that on normal difficulty, which means I'm playing against Automa, and they will be playing the Nordic Kingdoms here. Well, it wasn't randomly picked, it was picked because I picked the yellow team, who are very close to me. That is the Crimean Khanate, and it recommended for your first few games, make sure that your opponent is quite far away from you, because the AI is quite warmongering sometimes and will do its best to take me out. So I think the best thing to do is to just get started, and I'll do my best to explain as we go along. I'll be explaining more about how the solo player works than how the game in general works, but I will be explaining each turn as I take it. If you would like a big explanation up front, then I highly recommend Rodney Smith's Watch It Played video. I'm sure a lot of you will have seen that already, but as always, he makes fantastic instructional videos. So in the solo game, I basically set up as if it was any other game. I get a faction mat and a player mat. I start off with the power and combat cards as defined by my faction, and the popularity, coins, and objectives as defined by my player mat. So I am starting off at 3 popularity. I have 6 money, 2 objective cards. My objectives are, so higher ground advantage. If I control 3 mountain territories at the end of the turn, I can turn this in and complete my objective. And hedge your bets, have at least 1 upgrade, mech, structure, recruit, and 1 of each resource at the end of your turn. So hopefully I'll be able to do one of those quite quickly. I am playing against the Nordic Kingdoms, as I said, and we take the number of combat cards and the power from their faction mat, and they have their combat card there, which we don't know about until they fight us. And everything else is kind of irrelevant. They are not going to do anything on a player mat. They don't get one of those. Their faction abilities are relevant. Their abilities for their mechs are irrelevant. It's just basically a place to store all of their stuff, and they start with 5 money. And in the solo game, we always start, so we have the choice of 4 actions. And as you can see, there's a top and bottom part to each action. You can choose to do either part, both parts, or neither part. But if you do both, you have to do the top and then the bottom and just work your way down like this. So I think I would like to produce. So I put my little marker over here, and this is basically used because you can't take the same action 2 times in a row. So it basically means it's a reminder that I can't produce next time. So to produce, we work our way down. So I have to pay nothing because all of these workers that will be employed later probably are covering up the pay slots. So once they are recruited later on, you'll see I'm going to have to start paying combat power and other things. But now we can produce with workers on 2 different spots on the map. And to start with, we always have the 2 spots that are next to our home base where our leader is here. So I only have the option of 2 places. So I will produce on these, and you produce as many resources, or this village will recruit workers. You produce as many as there are meeples there. So I have produced a food there and a worker there, and they go onto the hexes, because if any combat should happen and I would lose any of these spaces, I would also lose the resources on them. Now we can look at the bottom action, which would be enlist, but I can't do that without 4 food, and I have only managed to produce 1 at the moment. So we will leave the second part, which means it's the Automa's first turn. And we have these fantastic summary cards for the Automa player. So the turn order for the Automa, we draw a card for them, and you make sure the cards have the 1 on the top. So we will draw a card and then we resolve it top to bottom. So we can ignore these things at the side for now, and the red part, we just need to worry about this. So the first part is going to be the Automa moves. And this in brackets means if it was playing this faction, it would do something in particular. It's not that faction, so we can ignore that. Now this is, they will try and take over the factory or an objective. So here I've just grabbed the summary sheet for encounter and factory, because that's the action that they will be doing. We select the Automa character, which is in the home base at the moment, and then we look at the valid hexes. So valid hexes are in the neighborhood of any Automa unit, and the neighborhood is usually the 6 spaces that surround a hex. So these would be the neighborhood of this worker, for example, but not at the start of the game because we cannot move across this river yet. So the neighborhood would just be these 2 tiles. And so it has to be in the neighborhood of an Automa unit. Then it either has to be the factory hex if the Automa doesn't have a factory card, or a hex with an encounter token. And in the Nordic Kingdom starting area, there is an encounter token right here. So that is going to be the hex that we target. So we choose the destination hex. It's a valid hex, and the valid hex was defined by this section here. There's no enemy unit there. There's no Automa mech there. And if there was a tiebreaker, there isn't at the moment because there's only one space, but we would choose based on those tiebreakers. So now, place the character on the destination hex. The character picks up the encounter token if there is one. And if it was on the factory, it would take a factory card. So Bjorn is going to move on here, and he's going to grab that encounter token and basically deny it from me. Nothing else happens. He's just taken one away from the board. So that was the top section, and as soon as we have gotten to something that the Automa can do, we stop reading and go to the next line. So this part here where he would just move the character, we don't do because the character moved to an encounter token. And I should mention as well, that movement doesn't work like it does for us. We can move one hex at a time usually. The Automa, it's explained in the rulebook, they have some fancy teleportation technology, and they can basically teleport as long as it's in the neighborhood of other units, and that's how the character was able to move 2 spaces at once. If the character was at home base and he had other characters all the way out here, other workers or mechs, he would be able to teleport straight out where they were. So we've handled movement. Now we can move to the second part, which is the Automa gets stuff. And this means they get 1 money. And they never spend money, so it's basically just giving them more points. So they now have 6 money. This third part would be an enlist bonus. So basically, if I had enlisted a certain worker here and gotten some bonus, if the same symbol was on this bottom part of the Automa card, I would then get that enlist bonus. But not only is there no symbol here, I haven't enlisted anyone yet, so we can completely ignore that for now. And then we look at this middle portion, and the middle portion means advance the star tracker. And this is the star tracker. It's different for the various difficulty levels, and we just advance this one. You'll notice there is a little wavy line with a red cross through it, and that means that the Automa cannot cross rivers yet. As soon as this has advanced to this space, they will be able to cross rivers and come for me. And when it gets to this space, they're going to get a star, and stars are the way you win this game. As soon as someone's placed the 6th star, that's it. And not only that, they will flip their cards over to the red side and start being a lot more aggressive. And with the Automa's turn, it's back to me. And I think I would like to trade, because I would like to enlist as quickly as I can. So I'm going to pay a money. We start at the top here. So in red, pay a money from my starting 6. Then we can trade on spaces we have workers, and we basically pick a resource twice and we get that resource. I am going to pick food twice. And so we now have 3 food, very close to being able to enlist when I next take the production action. And I have no oil, so I'm not going to be able to do the upgrade action. Over to Automa, and we draw a card for them. And so for movement, they can't move a mech because their mechs are all on the player mat. They can't do an encounter because they can't cross rivers yet, and there are no encounters on that starting area. So they're going to move the character. So this is the summary here, the non-attacking move character. So you would select the character, valid hexes in the neighborhood of a unit or the base. There is no enemy unit there, there's no Automa mech there, and that's important because if there was an enemy unit in the space, it would initiate combat, and this is a non-attacking move. So you would pick up the character, and the destination would be the shortest distance from enemy combat units, or closest to factory, or in a reading order. And I'm just kind of going through this because there isn't anything the Automa can do this turn, because it can't cross rivers yet, and the character is already as close as it could possibly be to my combat unit, which is my character on the home base. Without crossing that river, it can't get any closer. And if you go through the whole thing and they just can't do anything, they don't move this turn. So now we come over to the Automa gets stuff, and it's not that faction, so we just go over here and it gains a worker and a money. The money comes from the suppliers before, and the worker comes from the player mat and goes onto their home base. There we go. And there is no enlist bonus, and we advance the star. So there we go, the Automa is close to being able to go across rivers. Now I think I would like to produce again. So I come over here, I still don't have to pay anything, there's nothing listed there. I can pick 2 hexes to produce on, and since I only have 2 hexes with workers on, I will pick the same again. So I'll produce a food on this hex, and then I'll produce 2 workers, taking them from here. And now you can see that next time I produce, I'm going to have to pay a combat power. And we have a nice little collection of workers going on there. And for the first time, I have 4 food. So I'm going to take that off the hex and pay it. And we can now enlist. And when you enlist, you can take one of these 4 recruits here and take them off and permanently get a bonus whenever you or anyone else does the bottom action here. And in a 2-player game, you would always get that whenever anybody takes the action. In a more than 2-player game, it's the person on your left or right. In a solo game, it's when it's in this bottom part of the card here, which we haven't seen yet. And I think I'm going to enlist more, so I am going to take the bonus from here. So now, whenever I enlist, or it comes up on the Automa card, I'm going to get a combat card, which is good, because I can spend combat cards as if they were resources. So now I've taken the enlist token off, I can place it on any one of these 4 spaces and get the bonus just once. And I think I'm going to put it on here and grab 2 combat cards. And I have 2 4s, which is quite nice. They're a lot rarer than the weaker cards. There's 2s, 3s, 4s and 5s. And there's only 8 of these in the whole deck. And after enlisting, I gain 2 coins. And coins are what this game's all about. You will get coins at the end of the game for stars and territories you control and resources, but just having raw money is also your points. So we move on to the Automa, and let's see what they do. Now this symbol, if we were playing on easy mode, the automator, they would just skip their entire turn, but we are not. We're playing on normal difficulty, so they're going to move a worker. And to move a worker, we select the worker closest to the base. That will be the one that is in their base, and they will move in the neighborhood of any unit with no enemy unit and no Automa worker. And that is the only one that is valid is the one that the character is on, so they are going to move there. So now they gain stuff. They are not that faction, so they are just going to gain a combat card. And luckily for me, the enlist bonus is the combat card, which I have unlocked in the previous turn, so I'm going to gain a combat card. I have a 2 there. That's nice because that will be probably spent for resources. And the card does not have a star in the middle, so we don't advance the tracker. Back to my turn, I think I would like to move some people. So I'm going to select the action, and for movement, you can select 2 separate units and move them 1 hex each. And I am going to move 2 workers from this space onto this mountain, because I want to produce steel to be able to get mechs later on. You see, you pay steel, you pay metal to get the mechs, and also one of my objectives is to control 3 mountain territories. So at the moment I control 1. I have no wood to do the build action, so that is the end of my turn. Let's see, Automa. He is that faction, so he is going to get a worker move, but he can't do one because all of his workers are on all 3 of his available spaces. So we will move to this. He can't move a mech either because he hasn't gained one yet. So he's just going to do no movement, and he is going to gain 4 combat power, and he is now at 8. No enlist bonus, the star tracker moves, and one more and he will be able to cross rivers. And if you're ever unsure if you've skipped a star track, you can just check the discard pile. So 1, 2, 3, and it's moved 3 spaces on the card there, so we are okay. So now I would like to produce again and make some use of the steel that I have just placed some workers on. So now I need to pay a combat to produce, so I'm going to go down to 4 there. I can pick 2 hexes to produce on, and I'm going to produce 2 steel here and a food there. And I don't have 4 food, so we skip this bottom part. So onto the Automa, and it can't move a mech, it can't move a worker. It's a little bit stuck until it can cross rivers. So now, if the character piece was on the player mat, it would gain its character again, but it isn't, so it's going to gain a mech, and that is going to go in its home base. It's also going to gain 2 combat power. No enlist bonus, and it advances on the star track and can now cross rivers from next turn. So now I think I would like to bolster. So I'm going to come here, I need to pay a money. Then I can either gain 2 combat power or a combat card. Since I'm a little low on power right now, I'm going to gain 2 power. And then we can come to this bottom part here. Now it costs 3 metal to get a mech, and I only have 2 on that hex there, but thanks to my coercion special ability, I can spend a combat card as if it were a resource token. And since I have one of the weaker cards, the 2, I'm going to spend that as if it was a steal, along with my other 2. And now I can deploy a mech, and I can pick from my available mechs. There is a bonus underneath each one that I will gain for the rest of the game. My mechs and my character will gain this bonus. And I think to get us moving across the map, I'm going to pick this one so I can now river walk. I can move across rivers to farms and tundra with my mech. I have to place it on a space with a worker, so I am going to place it over here. I also gain 2 coins. So let's see what Automa does. He isn't skipping a turn because we're on normal difficulty. Now his mech is going to move. So, non-attacking move mech. We select the mech closest to the base. There's only one. So it's going to move in the neighborhood of any Automa unit or in the neighborhood of the base. There is no enemy unit there and no Automa combat unit there. And it is going to move the shortest distance from an enemy combat unit. So now it can move across rivers. So these are all valid hexes. So it is going to move closest to my mech, which is this space here. There is no combat unit here. It's in the neighborhood of this character. So it is going to cross the river and start making a push towards my guys. Next, it's not that faction, so it doesn't gain a mech, but it gains a mech anyway. And we advance the star tracker. So we are close to the Automa gaining its first star. And it can gain stars from here. On the card here, there are stars whenever it reaches that space. It can also gain stars from winning combat, and I'm sure you'll see combat soon. And if it manages to get its power all the way up to 16 there, which if it doesn't start a fight soon, it's probably going to do. As for me, I think I would like to produce again and grab some more steel. So I have to pay a combat power, and I can produce on 2 hexes. I am again going to produce 2 steel and a food. I don't quite have 4 yet, so I can't take this bonus. Onto the Automa, it is that faction, so it's going to move a worker. So it's going to move in the neighborhood of any Automa unit where there isn't a worker, in the neighborhood of the most units, and not in the neighborhood of my units. And so when selecting the person to move, these 2 are both the closest to the base. So you go in reading order, so this is going to be the one to move, and it is going to move here because then it is in the neighborhood of 3 units. Okay, so now it gains a combat power and another worker. And I would get the enlist bonus for combat power if I had it. So, and the star tracker moves, so we are ever closer to the turning point in the Automa's tactics. Now I think I would like to bolster again, so I need to pay a money. And I'm going to take a combat card. It's a 3. And I'm going to use that 3 straight away with my 2 metal from this space. And I'm going to grab another mech. So my abilities, I could either move from a territory or home base to any inactive faction's home base or your own. That would be very nice for getting around. +1 hex per movement is very good. But I know the Automa is going to really want to fight with me. So I am going to get this scout. Before combat, steal one of the opponent's combat cards at random. So I'm definitely going to take that mech. And since there isn't one here, let's place it on this space. I also get 2 coins. Let's see what the Automa does. It's not that faction, so it's going to move a worker. So it's going to move the worker from its home base, and the neighborhood with the most, that is closest to the factory, is this one here. That's in the neighborhood of 2. Then it's going to gain another worker to its home base and a money. And I would get the popularity enlist bonus, but I don't have that yet. It also advances on the star track, and it is 2 away from a star. So now I think I would like to do some movement. So I've got 2 pieces I can move. I'm going to move my character over here and hopefully get to this objective next time I move. And then I am going to move this mech with the worker, and I can move to farm or tundra. So they're going to move to this tundra here. And I don't have the wood to be able to build. So that is the end of my turn. The Automa is going to move a worker, and there is one in its home base. And that is going to move here in the neighborhood of 2. I think that's the most it could be. Yep, it's going to move there, and it's gaining more territories, you can see, which are worth points, and I'm going to have to fight them to get them out of there, which will lose me popularity. You don't want to fight with workers unless you can help it. It's going to gain yet another one. It's almost gained all of its workers, and it's going to gain a money. And I get the money enlist bonus, which I do not have. The star track advances one more time. So next time it does, the Automa is going to get a star, and then we're going to start seeing some different moves from it. And we're not that far into the deck, really. That's happened quite quickly. So now I would like to trade. I'm going to pay a money there, and I am going to grab 2 food so I can get ready to enlist next time. I don't have oil, so I can't do this here. Automa's turn. So it's going to try and do an encounter, and it can do that. So we select the character like before, and it's going to come here to this encounter token and take it away. Then it's going to gain a worker. That's its last worker. They're all on the board at the moment. And a combat card, and I also gain one because I have that enlist bonus. So he got a secret one, I got a 2. So I can spend that quite happily as a resource. And, unfortunately for me, the star tracker advances. So now, we need to grab one of the Automa's stars and put it near the star track up there. And we need to shuffle the whole deck and flip it over to the red side, the 2 side. So for my turn, I would like to produce. So that costs me a combat power. I'm down to 4. I can produce on 2 hexes. I am going to produce. I'm going to produce metal there. So that's 2. And then I'm going to produce oil on here, my newfound space. Then I am going to pay my 4 food. And I'm going to enlist. And which one will I enlist? Well, I'm going to be building a mech soon. So maybe I want that, but I'm not going to be doing that much more. I think I will do this one for upgrades because I might be upgrading soon. And I will place it on here since I have so little combat power. So I'll get 2 more right now. And also for enlisting, I get 2 money. And because I have the bonus, I get a combat card. Oh, it's a 5. That's going to be nice when we fight. So the Automa's first turn in its newfound tactics, it's going to move a mech, and so that mech is going to move closest to my units from the home base, and that is the closest there, I believe. Yep. It's getting very close, and then it's going to gain 2 money and another mech, and the star tracker will advance once more, so we are here now. Now I would like to trade, so I need to pay a money. And I can either gain a popularity or grab 2 resources. I'm going to grab 2 oil. And this is so I can pay it right now, all 3, the one I produced last time. And I'm going to take the upgrade action. So when you take the upgrade action, you can choose any of these cubes from the top here. So you're going to get a better benefit when you take these actions in the future. And not just that, you get to put that cube somewhere on the bottom here and make one of these actions cheaper for the rest of the game. So I am going to take this cube from here, so it's going to make my bolster action more powerful, and I'm going to place it down here, so it's going to make my remaining mechs cheaper. They only cost 2 metal now. And because I have this enlist bonus, I'm going to get a combat power. So what will the Automa do? So do they have 7 combat power? Yes, they do. Are they in the neighborhood of my units? No. So they can't do combat yet, or on a worker. So they're going to move a mech. That's the mech from the home base. And it's going to go all the way to my door here. Then he's going to gain 3 combat power. So he's at 14. And I get the popularity enlist bonus, which I don't have. And the star tracker moves once more. And I think I'm going to stop there for now. If you'd like to see the rest of the game, then there will be a link for part 2 somewhere on the screen. And I'll see you soon.